All right, it's finally time to talk about it. That time-honored tradition of homeschool moms everywhere. That activity that brings us the most joy. You know what I'm talking about. It's curriculum shopping time. Hey guys, welcome back to my Practically Imperfect Life. Today's video is part 3 of the series that I'm doing on how I choose my courses and curriculum for the upcoming school year. If you have missed parts 1 and part 2, I will link them down below. In part 1, I talked about how it is that I determined what types of courses I was going to have my kids do during the high school years and how I kind of mapped it out on a high school outline. I also offered a free PDF planning tool in that video as well. In part 2, I started to narrow things down, actually looking at what my kids have already completed towards their high school credits and figuring out exactly what classes I wanted to have them do in the upcoming year. And now that I've got that figured out, I need to determine what curriculum it is that I'd like to have. And before I dive in too deep, I wanted to address a couple of things that people have brought up. So with my kids only being 1 year apart, both in age and grade, I've been asked a few times why I even bother switching up curriculum. If you've used this with your oldest and it worked well, why would you even bother searching for something different for your younger student? And here is my reasoning. Now, my reasons might be different from yours, and I'm not saying that you have to do it this way. I'm just letting you know how it is that I look at this. I want my kids to graduate with 2 things. One, I want them to have learned something, to have been able to absorb the material, learn the material, and have a good grasp on it. Second of all, I want them to graduate with the joy of learning. I want them to want to go out and learn more things. I want them to feel excited to study whatever it is they want to pursue in life. I want them to want to be lifelong learners of lots of different topics. And if I can choose curriculum that really plays to their strengths, that helps them to learn that material well, that helps them to build that joy of learning, then it is worth it to me to make those changes. I did not want to come into homeschooling trying to copycat what public school looked like, where oftentimes you have one curriculum and one way of teaching it, and that is done for every single student, regardless of that student's learning styles or that student's strengths and weaknesses. Because when a student is forced into a type of learning or a type of curriculum that does not work well for them, they are going to struggle more and they won't get the same kind of learning experience. And so that is how I approached our homeschool, particularly in the high school years, as curriculum gets more in depth, as subjects get harder, as the quantity of information that they're trying to learn grows. So that is why I look at our curriculum each year, determine which things I'm going to keep the same from student to student and which things I am going to change. Now, the other comments I've gotten have been about how this would increase costs and time for our homeschool. Is there an extra cost when you are purchasing a new curriculum for another student? Yeah, obviously, right? If you're buying a new curriculum set and not just replenishing workbooks and things like that, you're gonna have to pay for that, right? But that's where our budget comes in. I always allocate a certain amount of money towards our homeschool each year. For us, our homeschool is one of our biggest priorities, and putting money towards the things we need for that homeschool ranks way higher than things that we would consider to be more frivolous or things that are just okay or fun to have. We would rather put our money towards something that has great value to us and to our family. So that is how we address the fact that there is an additional cost if I'm purchasing new curriculum each year. And then time. Yes, it does require more of my time. I have to do the research. I have to buy the curriculum. When I get it, I need to review it. I want to be familiar with what it is that my kids are going to be taught, how it's going to be taught, do my lesson planning, make sure that I have all of the things that they're going to need for that course. But again, my homeschool has an extremely high value to me, and it is worth it to put my time towards that versus other things in order to make sure that I have that stuff ready. So that is how I address those couple of questions. Why it is I sometimes change up curriculum from kid to kid, why it's okay to me that I have to spend more time on it, and why it's okay that we have to allocate more of our budget towards it. And with all that said, let's talk about my strategy. How is it that I even get started researching and purchasing curriculum? And step 1 for me is to evaluate my students. they have each grown so much over the years. They have things that they may have initially struggled with, especially when we were entering middle school and how it is we were having to approach things was changing. And I've seen them grow certain skill sets, but I've also become really in tune to how each of them learns. And I like to start by just kind of writing down those things, making a quick note of for myself of things that I know work well for my kids, or what things I've seen haven't worked, particularly with the current year curriculum. For example, I have one student who would prefer to read the majority of their learning material. They would rather have a passage to read, a couple of pages in a chapter, written down instructions, as opposed to anything done as a video. They really don't enjoy video instruction. They don't enjoy having to sit and watch a lot of videos. They would rather read it. And they are a quick reader, and they absorb the information best when they've read it. On the flip side, I have another student who is the exact opposite. While they're a good reader, they are not a fast reader. And a lot of times they have to read the same thing 2 or 3 times for that information to really absorb, which then takes quite a bit of their time. Whereas if they're seeing things presented in a video format, so video instruction or a video talking about a topic, they absorb that information much more quickly. I have one student who really does not enjoy much in the way of hands-on projects as far as building things or creating things or making models, but they do enjoy drawing and narration. So narration notebooks work really well for that student as a way to present the information that they've learned, to be able to do some of their own sketches and some free drawing in order to basically let me know what it is they got out of a lesson. My other student, again, the exact opposite. If they have the opportunity to build a model or a display or do an experiment, that is where their skill set lies. And so that tells me that I want to try to look as much as possible for a curriculum that play to those 2 very different individuals and the way that they learn best. So the second step that I take is to start to list down different curriculum companies or curriculum programs that have worked well for us in the past or have worked well for one student or another. I might add in additional notes too about what it was we liked or disliked about that. Some of the examples of companies that we've used pretty extensively is IEW, Excellence in Literature. We have used BJU, Apologia, Berry and Builders, Guest Hollow, Seven Sisters Homeschool. And there are different programs from each of those companies that we have used. And once I have that list down, then I will start getting onto the computer and doing a little bit of research on the specific courses that I know I need to have. Now, I'm not going to take you through each and every subject because this video would be quite long, but I thought I would show you some of the places that I go online in order to do my research and how it is that I look at what is out there information-wise about a curriculum in order to determine how material is taught, what is covered, and what types of learning styles it really is more geared towards. And we'll just kind of take you through all of the steps. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly which curriculum I decide on at the end of this video. That will be coming in a curriculum choice video, and I usually send those out in early May, so that way you guys can see what it is that I chose, and by then I usually have it all on hand to show you, and then we will share those at that time. So I like to start my research at kathyduffyreviews.com. If you are unfamiliar with this website, it is wonderful. There's a wealth of information on here. She has reviews written for hundreds of different curricula programs for all different ages. They are thorough and in-depth. She keeps them up to date and just provides a lot of good insight into the different programs. On this website, you can look for a curriculum in a couple of different ways. If you go over here where it says Homeschool Reviews Core, you can go by subject. So for example, if I was looking for literature for my son, I could go through here and I could go down to the grades 9 through 12 list, and you can see there is a list of lots of different options, and all of these are clickable links. It's going to take me right to the review for those individual ones. Now, some of them you'll notice have like a little red apple next to them. That means it's in her list of top 103 curriculum programs that she has reviewed. Another way that you can do a search is the advanced search option. This is really nice if you want to tailor down this big long list by different criteria. So for example, I could look specifically for the grade level that my son is going into. I could narrow down the different lists of what types of things I'm looking for. So here, again, we're going to look for literature for grades 9 through 12. You could even put in information as far as learning styles, or you could go by the point of view that you want to have. Do you want it to be religious? Are you looking for secular material? What kind of methodology do you use in your homeschool? So maybe you do a Charlotte Mason approach or a Waldorf approach or a classical approach. You could basically narrow down those curriculum programs by a lot of different filters. But I'm going to go back to this list here. So some of these we are familiar with in different ways. For example, the Apologia American Literature. My daughter actually did this course. BJU, we've been using BJU for many years for my son. My daughter is currently doing Essentials in Literature. And then there are different ones that I've seen other homeschoolers share and present. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these and show you every single review, but let's give you an idea of what some of these reviews will look like and what kind of things I'm looking to pull out of those reviews as I'm starting my short list of different programs I might want to do. First of all, I try to find out what sort of things might be included or what the strengths of the program are. For example, the review of BJU's upper level literature says the discussion questions are particularly good, can be used for oral discussion or writing assignments. It does mention a little further down, though, you can see here, parents and teachers need to be familiar with the reading so they can lead discussions. So that tells me that as a parent, I would need to be involved, and it's not going to be 100% independent work for that program. So if you watched my second video in this series, you heard me say that I wanted my son to do an American literature focus for next year. He's done some other things, but since he's going to be going into U.S. history next year, I wanted to try to tie a bunch of things together. So let's look specifically at the American literature program from BJU. So here it tells me some of the authors that are going to be included. William Bradford, Ben Franklin, Daniel Hawthorne, Henry David Thoreau, Melville, Thurber, Wilder, Tan. And then it lets me know that there's prose pieces, there's going to be poems, which my son will be super excited about. And it does have different types of writing assignments as well. Now, you notice that this isn't terribly detailed as far as what's in there, but if I'm interested after reading this review in that curriculum, I'll show you the next steps and how I find out more about what's actually included in there. But let's look at another option from this list. So here's Apologia's American Literature. Lets me know that we've got a textbook, and then there are free lesson plans, tests, and answer keys on the Apologia Book Extra website. That there is background information and instructional information included in the textbook, but there are also going to be books that we're going to need to have on hand, such as The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, The Great Gatsby, and so on. This review even gives examples of the types of questions that might be seen in the curriculum, so you can get an idea on what type of literary analysis you're doing with a particular program. Here's another thing that I would pull out. This course requires a great deal of reading and writing. You are free to skip some of the works or some of the questions or use them for discussion as opposed to written responses. But questions sometimes build upon one another and provide critical learning elements. So something to keep in mind, because I mentioned before, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 reads for him to grasp all of the information, and that would definitely add to the amount of time that might need to be spent on this curriculum. Plus, the majority of the daily work is doing written responses to these different questions, and not a ton of variety in terms of the types of activities that are done as a part of the learning. So as I'm going down through this list and checking different things out, I'll make a note of a few that I'd like to look into further. Honestly, just by reading the reviews here, I can usually get it narrowed down to 2 or 3 options pretty quickly based on what it says is included and the things that it is going to be presenting and how it's going to be presenting them. And I can just see if that's something that's going to fit with the student that I am looking at that curriculum for. And then I try to find some additional information and some reviews from people who have used the curriculum. Now you'll notice, for example, when I looked at the BJU information, it listed a couple of authors that were included, but it really didn't give me a broad view of everything that's included. So I'd like to try to find somewhere that is going to have a table of contents that I can flip through. So I'm actually on the BJU site. It has a peek inside option, which is really nice. So that way I can take a closer look at what is included in the book. And so from looking at this, I can get a
idea of which authors are covered, what types of works, excerpts. Are we doing a whole bunch of poetry? Are we doing a good mix of short stories, poetry, some excerpts from longer work? What all is really included there? And that'll give me an idea of just, again, how broadly it covers that topic. Something else that I like to do is look for reviews on that curriculum. So since I just showed you BJU, let's just go ahead and look at that. We'll go ahead and we're going to search for BJU American Literature. Now, I take reviews with a grain of salt, right? Because some people are just going to go on there and just say, oh, I loved it, or we hated it. But what I'm really looking for is information on why somebody liked it or didn't like it. So let's just see if there are any reviews listed on either Rainbow Resource or on christianbooks.com. Those are usually good places for me to look. Here we go. Here's 2 reviews on here. Information overload. This one gave it 3 stars. Let's see. It says weak supplemental material, no reading quizzes. Teacher edition notes are not organized for easy use as in the 10th. So I like how specific that particular review is. Now let's check at another site as well so we can get an idea. And if I still feel like I need more information or more feedback, at that point I will, see if anybody's done a video review or a flip through or anything like that. Now, I don't always just cut a curriculum simply because it's got a couple of bad reviews. This one doesn't have any reviews listed. Let's see if there's any on this one. I like to, just take that into consideration. Still no reviews on that one either. All right, let's see if there's any on the BJU website itself. Okay, so they said they enjoyed the biographies discussing the impact of changing worldviews on people in literature. The writing opportunities are so enriching too. All right, so let's do a quick recap of all of this. First, I make a note of my students' learning styles, their strengths, their weaknesses. What are things that they have liked or disliked about past curriculum that I've had them do? And once I have that all written down, then I will actually look back at curriculum companies that we've used in the past or specific programs we've used in the past and make a note. What did we like about it? What did we not like about it? A lot of times by just going back and revisiting some of that curriculum and really thinking about it, I can get a better idea on if it will work for my next student or if it's a curriculum company that I even want to stay with either one of my students going forward. Once I've made a decision that I'd like to look for something new, I'll go to a site such as Kathy Duffy Reviews to start doing some research. Now, that is not by any means the only website out there that you can do a search on. I simply like it because it's got so many different bits of information on there. It's detailed, it's unbiased reviews of the curriculum, and I can really find out what kind of learning styles things will play to, what kinds of things are included, and I can usually narrow things down to a pretty good short list, 2 to 3 options for a given course. I'll then take that short list and I'll do a little more of a deep dive. I'll go to the publisher's website, see if I can look inside of the book or look at the table of contents. I'll read the customer reviews, see what people have said about it in the past. What did people like or not like about using it? If I can't find very good written reviews or that many written reviews, I'll go to YouTube, see if someone's done a flip through video or some sort of a review where they're showing the actual curriculum, talking about how they used it in their homeschool and how well it worked for them. And that there wraps up my process for researching and choosing curriculum for the upcoming school year. Hopefully this 3-part video series has been helpful if you have a student who's getting ready to enter high school or who may already be in high school. It's not as daunting as we try to make it out to be. It just takes a little bit of time on your part to really look at your students and figure out what types of things will work best for them, playing to those strengths, and then doing just a little bit of research and comparison on the different curriculums that are out there. We are really fortunate though as homeschoolers nowadays that we have so many options to choose from. That wasn't always the case, and it's beautiful to see that more and more companies are working to get different types of material out there that teach students in a lot of different ways. Now be sure to hit that like button and subscribe and watch for those curriculum choice videos to be coming out later this spring. I do like to share them early because I often have my choices made quite early, and that gives you guys the opportunity to take a look at some of the things that we've chosen for the upcoming year, do your own research and comparison, and have a chance to get some great deals on those things before we get to the next school year. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video, everybody. Happy homeschooling. See you in the next one.